Hello and welcome to Modern Toy Fair. Today we're going to answer the question, has the collecting bubble popped? I'm your host, Mr. Modern Toy Fair, and I am joined by the founder of the NEC Illuminati, the delayer of shipments, the procrastinator of pre-orders, my YouTube wife, Mrs. Modern Toy Fair, Jarmar_Games. But that's not all. We are also joined by the man, Optimus Prime. Oh, I think I fucked it up already, but I don't care. Optimus Prime popped, then he refuses to stop. The man the Modern Toy Fair has full custody over. The Twilight Knight, the master of mech, the three-pump chump of taking this show off the rails, Nate.
That was a pretty good recovery. I gotta admit.
We are recording though.
Yes, we are actually recording.
Okay,
this week.
that's
yes,
where I thought you fucked up. I wasn't.
Oh no, I wish that, because at least then I would have caught in the first 3 minutes instead of like 20 minutes in like usual. How you guys doing?
I'm okay. Yeah,
me as well.
That's good. That's an upgrade from last week. That's for sure.
Is it?
Oh, you don't remember?
Yeah.
You were in a pretty sour mood at the beginning. You got pretty uppity by the end, but yeah, you were very sour at the beginning of the episode.
I do.
But anyway, we're here to talk about the collecting bubble and if it's popped. So for context, let's go through like a brief, vague timeline. Okay. So a couple years leading up to the pandemic times, collecting had been kind of on the up. It was kind of slowly getting bigger and bigger to the point where it was getting harder to get things because there's more people buying, but not as much product. So like, for instance, if you've been a fan of the show, you'll remember the NECA times when, and like that was kind of in the thick of the pandemic. Well, it was even worse before that because they would send Targets one or two things and 10 people would be going to Target every day trying to find it. So the supply demand was very, very, very different. Then the pandemic happened and a lot of people had more time on their hands because they weren't at work, a lot more money on their hands from, the checks, stimulus checks, the stimulus checks, and collecting kind of exploded. Suddenly, like, people who were just jumping in the hobby just because they needed something to do. Some people were doing it to make more income and try to like become a reseller. Some people were just, found a new passion because they watched a YouTube video or found a podcast and it kind of brought that out in them. And the scarcity of figures amongst collectors became even smaller and harder to find. And on top of that, we had all the shipping delay issues with the, obviously overseas, there was a lot of issues with the factories due to the pandemic. So it had gotten, the supply and demand got even further apart. And then as things kind of slowly settled down over the course of the 2 years, they started to kind of equal out a little bit. But now it feels like demand is going a lot further down and the supply is not. The supply seems to be plentiful and the demand seems to be diminishing to levels lower than it was pre-pandemic. Because now you go, like, it was just Christmas time and you go to Target and Walmart and shelves are still full, versus pre-pandemic, you'd go to a Target or a Walmart in January and there was like scraps if you're lucky. So I guess let's kind of go and discuss what we think is like causing this versus like, is this just kind of like a little bump in the road, or if this is going to be an ongoing long-term problem, because we've kind of touched on the topic before, but never in a long form stance. So who wants to go first? Not everyone wants.
No. Go ahead.
I mean, I'll go. All right. Thank you so much. So yeah, I definitely agree with pretty much everything you said, and kind of how things were going and how things are currently going. Now, I don't want to misinterpret this as like bitching that it's easy to find exclusives. So that taken out of it.
Oh yeah,
because that is not problem. I love it. But you're absolutely correct. And I think it is nowhere more apparent than Target right now. Because, you know, they've been getting exclusives in, clearancing them within a month.
Yeah.
And, you know, the same thing happened again, especially with the Star Wars exclusives, with some of the Marvel exclusives. And I can tell you it's a couple of different things, I think, converging at once. I don't think it is one big thing, but a multitude of factors. Because I do think when the pandemic happened, I think people had a little bit more time on their hands. They were spending more time at home. They were getting reinterested in maybe properties or things of their youth and getting nostalgic. And people were just like, oh, you know, I want to relive this because life sucks right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that demand went really high for that kind of stuff. And as things are steadily coming back into place, you know, you have people that are leaving the hobby, whether it was because they had, you know, good intentions to begin with, you know, that they just wanted to collect, or if they had bad intentions, they wanted to flip and make a profit. I think we are seeing those people kind of dissipate and leave as their lives once again get busier, unlike us sad folk who do this all the time. But I also do think that the price increases have really put a major hurt on this. I look at the lines I bought 2 years ago compared to what I get now, and it's night and day.
Mm-hmm.
I still get a lot, you know, but I'm way more selective, and I am much more mindful of what I'm spending or how I'm spending. So it's more about like trades or exchanges or things that I can, you know, justify that price and spread out that payment for a while. Things like that. I think all of those things together are seeing a major, you know, decrease. And also, you know, everybody's kind of mad at everything right now too. Like, as far as not only are we mad at the companies, but we're mad at Star Wars because it's not what we want it to be. We're mad at Marvel because it's expanding too fast. We're mad at DC now because, well, we were always mad at DC, but for some reason
that never stopped. Yeah,
but for some reason there's this amount of people who thought everything was awesome, even though that never happened. But they're mad because, you know, all of that. You know, people that saw Avatar are mad at the people who won't see Avatar. The people who didn't see Avatar are mad at the people for going to see Avatar.
How could you? How could you?
Yeah. Everybody is just mad, and nobody is having fun, and nobody wants to deal with it, and prices are high, and they don't want to spend it. And yeah, all of those things are combining into one thing that are causing the definitely the collector circumference to shrink.
That's a good way of putting that. As I do agree with you on a lot of your points, there's one thing that I've just noticed myself. So I can't speak for every collector as a whole. No, do I expect you guys to speak for them? Well, actually, Nate, you're more of a representation of all of the collectors. So I thank you for speaking for everyone. And no one will be mad about that at all.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe the bubble hasn't burst because all these things happen around the same time, right? But I also think that the hobby has for me, has become less fun and much more transactional. And then I hear people now commenting saying, well, you're buying action figures, so it is a transaction. But like the kind of, oh, I'm gonna go out to Target and see what I find. Oh my god, they're here. Wow, that's so cool. I didn't expect this. Or like the fun, the thrill of like.
So you missed the thrill of the hunt that we hated so much?
Yes, but so the hunt that we hated was when it was, we don't know how much you're getting. We don't know when it's coming out. They said it'll be out next month, but some reason some Targets are getting it now. These Targets aren't getting it. That was more of like the miscommunication. But it is fun to just walk into a Target and be like, hey, I think these are coming out this week. Cool. Oh my God, they're here. Or like having that, I guess it is. It's sort of like the hunt, but not like the insanity. It was like the fun hunt leading up to the pandemic. Once
we must have had different experiences, because I don't remember there ever being a time where there was a not a worry where if I walked in and got something, I'd be excited because I found it, not because thank God it's not sold out.
let's see. I guess maybe we were collecting different lines,
No,
so
because
that could be the
the summer
difference.
before the pandemic,
I
Rocksteady and
didn't have
Bebop came
those.
out, and I remember that was a pain in the ass, and we were all
That
panicking.
was.
Rocksteady and Bebop.
Yep, because I had moved to Arizona at that point, and it was the first summer I'd been there, and I
I
found them and got super excited, them and the brighter colored turtles, and I sent pictures to you and Wes to see if you
uh
wanted them, and then you ran to Target to find one and got lucky and found it. But it was
okay,
still stressful because we didn't know if we were going to find them or not.
sure, but again, what I'm referring to is maybe even a little bit before that, of just like certain Marvel Legend waves just showing up and being like, oh, I think I want to get this one. Like shit like that is what I'm more referring to. Not of like, oh my god, I need to have this and I don't know if I'm gonna get it. So we'll exclude NECA from most of this. But
So
even
most of your
still,
toy lines that you collect.
but no, I mean, there's only very there. Most of the Target exclusives was the ones that kind of seemed like to be a hassle. So like the 4 packs and shit like that.
All
But I
exclusives
don't
were a
think
hassle
I
back then.
had like awful experiences for everything that I've had from there. Um, but like that to me was like the thrill of it, or being like, oh, this is out. Okay, cool. I'm gonna pre-order this, and it actually comes out in a short amount of time. I think the hobby is less fun because it's more of, okay, well, this is coming out at some point in time in the future. I don't know when. I'm just going to give you some money and hope that it comes out within the same calendar year. And to me, that is obviously affected by the pandemic and shipping delays and all that shit that we're still dealing with the effects of that. But that has kind of taken away the fun from the hobby. Like seeing new things announced, that was fun all the time. And being like, oh my god, they're doing this. Oh my god, they're doing this. Oh my god, they're doing this. And now it just seems that like even if things get announced, I don't have like an exciting or excitement. Like we'll use the Mezco figures for example. Those were just recently announced. Well, not announced, but revealed and available for pre-order. But like my excitement isn't so much about the figure because it's like, well, I don't even know when I'm going to get these. So I do like it. It looks cool. But in reality, I don't expect to get these anytime soon. And that's sort of the same, I guess, thought for every single thing that I collect. And that's kind of not fun anymore. It's more of like, let me just put my card in here and see when it shows up. And to me, that's what I'm saying. That's just how I feel. That's what kind of like takes the lackluster. It makes it a little bit like lackluster. Or I guess that's the only way I can really explain
So
it.
I'm gonna
I'm just having fun with it. Okay, I'm just buying
I'm gonna
things.
blow your mind right now because I'm pretty sure what I took from that is being on
But
this show on this YouTube channel is what made collecting less fun for you because prior to being on this channel, you didn't keep up with the new releases. You would just find things because they'd show up.
maybe that's true. Maybe that's what it was. It's your fucking fault.
It is. I ruined collecting for you,
You
which is
ruined
ironic
it. You
because
ruined it.
this whole channel, like at least the podcast, what was originally the news, exists because of you. Because you came to me and you're like, I really want to do a video podcast, but I don't want to do like what you were doing at the time of Why You a Gamer. I was like, well, you know what? I'm
Yeah.
starting Modern Toy Fair on its own channel. I'm going to have reviews and stuff. Let's do like a podcast or let's do the weekly news.
The news.
And
Yeah.
that started this venture. So like, it's kind of your fault too, because you asked for this.
No, but I mean, I would say it's not as.
Jamar,
Go ahead.
what were you wearing?
Oh, what was I wearing? Probably nothing.
That's
Like,
a joke. Just to be clear, that was a joke.
So I shouldn't clip that for TikTok later.
To me, you are.
which if you're not following us, follow us on whatever it is at TikTok.com. Um,
TikTok.com/Modern Toy Fair.
There you go.
yeah, specifically the website. But yeah, that I don't know if I've like eloquently explained that, but that's just kind of how I feel. I don't feel excited for things to get announced because I don't know when it's
Because
going to come
it's
out.
no longer about finding it in store. It's about just waiting for it to show up at your door.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
not like really fun. It feels very adult like now. Of
Mhm.
like, oh cool, here goes my credit card. I'll see it in a few months or a year, or
I think that
I-
could be. Go ahead, Nate.
Well, I want to interject with that too because I understand exactly where you're coming from. Maybe this, is a toy therapy addendum or whatever, but I did have to like find a way to make it fun again, and because I do love the hunt. I love going out. It kind of fits in with what I do for a living now is just to go out to places. So, but I still love that. It's one of my favorite things to do when stuff is around the a potential for finding something is around. I love going out for a few hours, even. Friends of mine have made it into whole weekends, and so I had to like create that because it was exactly what you're talking about, where you're just putting your credit card information, you're pre-ordering it. I had to let go of some pre-orders and actually say, because I don't pre-order Transformers at all unless it's something special like a exclusive or some sort of like selects or something like that that's not going to be available at retail, because I want to be able to go to a store and find it. And I made that a conscious decision. One, because Transformers is probably the most popular toy line in existence, and they always come out to the stores. Like, very rarely are you unable to. I've never been able to find something. I've never been unable to, as long as I'm patient. That could go without saying with everything, but that's a whole nother topic. But and now I've started with the whole Marvel Legends, MCU figures, but only on clearance. And one, that's my own little private middle finger to Hasbro, because I think the shit is expensive. For what it is. And it's my own way to minimize my spending, but also to make it more fun, because I may go to the store and I may find the figure that I'm looking for, but if it's not at the right price, then I got to put it back. That's just all there is to it. And I don't cheat by getting on Amazon unless it's like I've been losing and not, this hasn't either gone on clearance yet and it's a fantastic price, or I've missed it and there it is for a similar price. That's the only time I'll do that on Amazon. But it makes it a little bit more fun. Now, what does that have to do with the bubble and collecting? I don't know, but I think there's less of me out there right now, because I do think people are doing more Hasbro Pulse, Big Bad Toy Store. Obviously, and this is not meaning to be a joke, but not Dorkside and not the Rebel one that came up. Maybe it is a joke. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Maybe I was.
But at the same time, Amazon is still a big one. I know I have several friends that get almost all of their pre-orders from Amazon still, which is crazy, but they do get things fast. And if that's what matters to you, then that's cool. The only thing I think I even have on pre-order is Masters of the Universe, because if you've noticed in stores, they're backlogged and stores aren't getting them. And then G.I. Joe Classified, but that's really only because of the panic of the year of 2020 when Classified came out, because it was such a out of the gate smash hit. And then also tying into, the bubble really getting big, people capitalizing on that, all those exclusives and just the shitty distribution all around for that line. That was kind of that perfect storm, because that was probably one of the new lines that kind of exploded out of the pandemic, was G.I. Joe Classified.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, Nate, thank you for putting it in a way that I was trying to get at it. I do actually enjoy the hunt. I just don't like when the hunt is poorly communicated.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I was trying to say.
Or it's forced upon you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what it is with the NECA stuff. We get into a forced hunt where our heart's not in it. We're only doing it because
we don't want to miss out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, that's a whole other topic. I'm not even going to ask it. We'll move on from that. But
topic for later.
I do think that a big part of it is demand became so great that companies try to overcompensate. Because if you think about it, since the pandemic, despite the fact that they all were having, shipping issues and manufacturing issues, they announced more and more often. Because before, like, Hasbro did their live streams and stuff, but it wasn't like a almost like 2 or 3 times a month thing. Like,
well, especially not like during the pandemic. Now, granted, that was their only means of communication, but there was one almost every week. There would be like a major brand panel once a week. Yeah.
And that was across all brands, because even like NECA got to the point where they were announcing stuff more regularly. It was, instead of getting stuff, at SDCC, NYCC, and Toy Fair, it was just like a spread across everything. And some of that was obviously on necessity, but at the same time, instead of still doing it at those specific times of the year, they spread it out across the entire 52 weeks.
Right.
Almost like they feel like the need, like kind of like if they were a content creator, like you have to have something out to stay relevant. Um, Even though that's not necessarily the case. Like, yes, the demand is there. People were like, I want to know what's new. I want to know what they're working on. I want to do this. But I don't think it's to the point where if they go away for a couple months and then have a big like reveal with a whole line of toys or something like that, that people are going to be like, oh, I don't care about them anymore. Like, I think it's just going to, if anything, it'll make that big reveal even bigger, where now I feel like there's a lot of fatigue. There's almost too much coming out because everyone's between stuff's more expensive all around. Because we did do an entire episode about the costs like rising and Hasbro being the most out of everyone, but everyone's feeling it. Hell, even McFarlane announced they're raising their prices.
What?
Yeah, they're going to $22.99.
Wow.
But they like everything's going up, and everyone has new lines that they've gathered. Everyone's expanding on lines they've already have. Like it's there's no like rest period. It's always something's going up for pre-order, something's coming out, something is needing your attention, and if you don't get it, who knows down the line if it's going to get released or if you're going to pay extra. So I think that's a big part of it, is just the fact that there's too much because companies overcompensated for how much demand there was. And then as far as the hunt goes, I will say I don't like the like standard Walmart Target hunts. I've never been a fan of it going in. Like, I'm addicted to it. Like, if I'm at Walmart or Target, I will stop and go and look in the toys. But I've always hated the hassle of like, well, is there actually going to be worth my while? Because 9 times out of 10, there's nothing there.
Sure.
I do love though going to like the exchange or going to a local shop or something like that, something where you are going to possibly see something that you haven't seen that you've been looking for, something older that you missed out on that you've been trying to find, or even something new that you didn't know like had started shipping, which at this point is very rare, but you never know.
Or something you didn't even know existed.
Yes.
Stay tuned or go back and watch our
Our weekly toy haul
OnlyFigs.
on OnlyFigs. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, little tease,
Yeah.
tease for something that already happened.
Yes. So yeah, I think it is a big part of it is just fatigue of everything. But I also feel like Nate mentioned, a lot of people are a little, without trying to insult people, butthurt because the last year has been very much just companies kind of going in dry, and they were recording record profits up until collectors stopped buying their stuff because it was too expensive. They got tired of raising the prices just simply because you could, because there's so many of us that are just willing to buy it anyway. And that's why stuff is now just on the shelves or waiting to go clearance, like with Nick, for instance. And it's got to the point where there's even certain things I've waited to go on clearance because I'm like, I want this, but not enough to go full price because it's not my main line. Because when the pandemic, like we were like towards the beginning of it and we started this channel, I had a miscellaneous collection that I had like on the shelf that I used to do, where it was just I let Jarmar get in my head with his shelf representation, and I would just pick little things here and there, and I like had a bunch of random stuff, and I eventually was like, why? I don't need any of this. I don't like the display is ugly because it's chaos.
Fun.
It's
So
fun.
I got rid of it all, and I have a few things here and there that if it's real special, I will get. But for the most part, if it's not a part of a specific collection that I want, I don't need it. Especially with how expensive things are, because you can only recycle your collection so much before you have to start getting rid of things you actually like for the things that you kind of sort of want. So it's easier just to cut that kind of stuff out if you don't need it than to try to expand.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about that too, because you and I, Michael, are generally ones that we do that quite a bit with, as far as recycling. The market has gotten smaller, and so we're not getting the same amount of return on something like, because I bailed on Marvel Legends as the comic group at a great time because I made a ton off of it. Not even like that wasn't even the intention. So it's not like I'm a dirty scalper, But you see what things are going for, and you go, well, all right, I'm going to sell it for $6 less,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to sell it like crazy, and I'm still going to make a good amount of money. That's not happening anymore. So you have to start, and this is true first world problems. But like you have to like start thinking like, oh, like, am I buying this just to have it now and then resell it in a year? Or should I just cut out the middleman and just not buy it at all?
Yeah.
Because I think we've all done that to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's something that isn't gonna stay around. It's something that you're like, I like this, but it's gonna go away eventually.
Yeah, it's like, especially like for me, like Kickstarter stuff, or even some HasLab stuff. Like I'm getting that Sky Striker in the next couple of weeks, and I'm just like, I don't want it. I didn't need. I have original Sky Striker. What do I need this for? So my shift has changed, and the bummer there is I know I'm not going to get a lot out of it. I'm actually probably going to sell it to a friend for cost, so that's fine as well. But even if I wanted to,
it's just not
really
there.
It's just not going to be the
the market,
because more people are getting. Yeah, people are getting more savvy to it. I mean, HasLabs, the successful ones, have, just outpaced, a lot of the previous ones. In fact, like Deathsaurus, this shocked me. Deathsaurus, the most recent Transformer HasLab, actually locked in 2,000 more than Starsaber did.
Wow.
Its counterpart. Yeah. So, I don't know if that's people thinking they're going to resell that one, or if it's just more people realized, oh, I missed out on something cool.
I think it's a lot of people thinking, oh, look at the past ones selling so well, I want to get in on that.
It could be too.
And they're going to be really disappointed in a year's time because it's not the case. Because a lot of those, like the newer ones, the market's so saturated because so many people did that. They even bought multiples to try to make up the money they spent on theirs.
I am so fearful because I got the Super 7 Thunder Tank, and I absolutely do not want it. I do not want it. I don't even know if I could sell it for what I paid. I don't know. I don't know if the interest is there, especially with Super 7. Things have been, and this is not me attacking Super 7. I was a huge fan of theirs. I still am a fan of theirs. I am a fan of theirs. There's certain things I don't like, and but I just don't know with that one, and I don't know.
I don't think
that's a big chunk of change to be not having.
Yeah, so. I don't think that's gonna be an easy sell. One, because of the cost of it to begin with, but with just the general like demeanor towards Super 7 at this point and how many people have kind of backed off of it, I don't see that going well. Because even like just in general NECA, for instance, I have that Loot Crate Armageddon, and I like it's cool, but I never had any interest in it. I just bought it because the last time I liked the other stuff that came in the arcade box, and you can't unload that to save your life. Like,
no,
like there's so many of them on eBay trying to undercut each other, and none of them are selling. And it's just like you can't.
Awesome.
What's that?
I said, good thing it's jawsome.
Yeah, clearly not jawsome enough. But yeah, the market isn't there because even like Mafex, when I first got into it last year, when I kind of fell out of the Mafex or not Mafex Mezco collection, those, if you didn't get your pre-order in and get it when it first came out, it doubled in price day one. And now it's to the point where either they've ramped up the amount of figures they're making to compensate that, or the people who are realizing that the market isn't there are canceling their pre-orders. But now a lot of them you can still get on the import sites. You can still get on Big Bad Toy Store. Once in a while you'll have one that kind of sells out but it still doesn't go up too crazy. It goes up like maybe $50. So that's a big part of it, is the third party market, which we all hate, is still a major factor in collecting because it kind of sustains it. For one, unfortunately, the scalper community, and two, for people who, try to offset their costs by selling their older stuff to get newer stuff. And if no one's buying from that, let alone buying from the retail, then that brings everything crashing down at that point. Because then the collectors who are staying in the hobby are going to have a hard time buying new stuff because they can't get rid of old stuff.
Right.
And they don't have that extra disposable income anymore that they would have had by recycling their collection. because even that's a big thing. For a while, even after I got done with Mezco, I still bought the figures solely with the purpose of I basically ran a chop shop because people loved the accessories, so I would part the figure out, the body, the heads, the like weapons, what have you, and I would make a little bit extra money, nothing crazy. But it was just something to do to where like I'd help people get the things they wanted or trade for other accessories I wanted and make a little extra than what I paid. And it got to the point where it was harder and harder to get rid of those accessories. So I just stopped doing it because it was like, well, I'm not going to justify spending $100 on a figure that I don't want to try to use that as trade fodder to sell to get other things if people don't want it. And then I get stuck with a bunch of accessories that get in a pile and then I eventually sell as a lot for a fraction of the price.
Right.
So whose fault is it then? Who will we say?
Hasbro.
Who will we blame? Is it?
It's always Hasbro. It's always Hasbro.
Yeah, it's always Hasbro. It's much like a multiplication problem. Hasbro is 0. So if you times anything by it,
it's Hasbro.
It's Hasbro. Anything, yeah. So any question, it's Hasbro. Yeah,
that's fair.
You can put that on there. Did Hasbro cause the collector bubble to pop? That's the title of the video.
All right.
Well, the answer is yes.
Fuck it, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm down for it.
And then have me going.
What?
Thank you for making that thumbnail easy for me. I put a little bubble popping in your mouth.
Yeah. Or just have saliva.
I was going to say maybe a mint.
Yeah.
Maybe a mint.
Yeah.
I just asked the question because it seems like a very complicated issue. Obviously, it's probably more simple than what we really are thinking about it. It just needs to be a perfect fine line or perfect balance of supply and demand. This is economics 101. Welcome, test this next week. But it's really just that simple. But who threw it out of whack? Can we blame it on like the pandemic? Can we say specifically?
Yeah, 100% it was the pandemic.
Because look at what happened to sports cards. Sports cards, which had been a dead, item of collectibles, exploded. And really, what really exploded, it was the graded cards. So it was prospecting. It's no different than stocks. It's no different than NFTs. It's no different than cryptocurrency. All that stuff exploded at that same time because people were just literally in this case, inventing new ways to create something collectible. And, toys for us who have been hardcore into it or have been in this hobby for longer than, 5 years. Yeah. Some of us have been in it our whole lives. I mean, that's most of us, really, you think about it, have been in it our whole lives because we never really, besides maybe a few years here and there, when we discovered something else to play with, that there was a little bit of time that was changed from that. But then we always end up coming back to it.
That's true. That's very true.
Oh my God. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it was the pandemic because it is a symbiotic relationship between consumer and manufacturer. And when one got offset, it caused the other one to react. And it just never got to a point where it was more even. I had something that I wanted. I can't remember it now. Shit.
That's the word.
I do feel like a major thing. Oh yes, as far as everything exploding during the pandemic, I think another major factor, especially as far as the like value collecting would go for people who were doing it to try to invest as an investment. I feel like that also was more so a societal problem. People suddenly weren't at their jobs and they realized how miserable they were when they were there. So they were trying to find a sustainable way to not have to ever go back. And a lot of people did, and a lot of people didn't. But I think that was a big thing is I think people were like, oh, well, there's money to be made if I make enough that I can, invest that and invest that. And like, that's why we ran into like the GameStop stock like thing, like during the pandemic and stuff. There was always the next big thing to try to make as much money as possible so that way you wouldn't have to go back to your shitty job. And I think that was a big part of it it was people were so miserable, they were trying to find ways to improve their life, and it just kind of bled into our hobby, which is now
Mm-hmm.
kind of suffering from it.
Because it's like you know, if you live in a beachfront town that's shitty in the wintertime, and then in the summertime it's awesome and all these people move in, and then August comes back around again and everybody leaves, and you're left picking everything up, and you've got all this extra crap that nobody else needs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. So I do feel like it it is coming crashing down, and it's crashing a lot faster than it rose, because I feel like it was a
Mm-hmm.
steady like 2 year rise, and I feel like it just kind of plummeted within the matter of 6 months. Like I think the big part of it was when everyone jacked up their prices and it came out that they were making record profits at the time, so there was no need to gouge like they were, and everyone then turned on them and was like, well, I'm not going to buy your product then, or if I will, I'll wait for it to go on clearance or what have you. um I think that just blew up so quickly that it wasn't able to balance itself out like it probably normally would have. So I guess to close it out, do you think the bubble has popped and it's gonna be a rough time going forward, or do you think this is a minor bump in the road and it's gonna bottom out and go right back up, or at least start going in the reverse direction it's currently going?
Well, I can say for sure the Bible has popped because I've listened to you guys talk, for the past hour. I'm joking. No, I think that we're not at a point where there's like no return, but there's also not gonna ever be. It's becoming more niche, and we'll probably start to notice maybe some lines, dwindling down and things like that. Because I don't know if we've seen any like real major line like disappear. If I
Yeah.
had to throw money in there to bet, I'd probably say Super 7 might like stop a few lines or something like that. They seem to be the ones that are moving at a more slower pace that I notice. Um, but once we see something big from like Hasbro saying like, "Hey, we're not going to do any more Power Rangers," something like that, that will be kind of like a big sign that it really is like fully burst. But I think we will get back to it. But like I said, it'll just stay more of a niche hobby. Sadly, it probably will be a lot less hunting, is what I'm gonna assume, because it's gonna be more like made to order kind of shit or order through our website and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think that collecting is doomed forever,
Mm-hmm.
but it's gonna suck. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I think this next year is going to be painful. I think we're still going to see an overabundance of product. I mean, we're already, like I've already said a couple things, but like just recently, and I love the fact that they're so easy to get. But stuff like the Python Patrol and Tiger Force stuff is really plentiful at Target, and like I mentioned earlier, Target is really moving through. They had a whole thing where they bought too much as a
Mm-hmm.
company, and so that's why they're clearancing things out so quickly. Um, so I think 2023 is still going to be a bit of a kind of putting the brakes on the train, and it's still got a ways to go before they can start fixing things.
Mm-hmm.
So this year I think is definitely going to be painful. I also think that we're going to have a problem with what I mentioned earlier, um, because one, everybody's mad at the IPs, so the IPs aren't as popular, and even the ones that are, like Transformers per se, um, they've made so many of the ones that everybody wants, and the figures are so good now. It's not as easy to make a new one every 3 to 5 years that's better and better. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we've already got a great one. It's 7 years old now, but it's still awesome. So something like GI Joe, I think, is going to be still a success throughout this year because we've never had these characters in 6-inch scale. So for the next few years at least, because you can say Snake Eyes is the main character, but that's debatable. GI Joe doesn't really have a main character, so you can go pretty deep, and people are happy. You make Dukes and Cobra Commanders and Snake Eyes, but in this line, you can make a bunch of other characters, and people are going to love it. And I think we're going to continue to see that. But I think we're going to see the opposite effect in a lot of other lines. Am I making sense? It sounds
Yes.
good up here. Okay.
All I heard was.
So I don't think, so to reiterate, I don't think the bubble has popped fully because I think enough of us have been in it and are in it for life. And I also think that we're in for a painful year, and it'll go back to what it was 3 to 4 years ago.
So,
to a certain extent,
I agree and also disagree a little bit. I do think that it's in the process of popping currently. We're currently seeing the pop. However, I think it's going to be a few years before we see any course correction, because what I think is going to happen is over this year, it's going to hit the companies hardest, and we're going to see brick and mortar toy sections suffer because of it, because Targets and Walmarts aren't going to want to order as much because they have to keep clearancing out and losing money on it, which is then going to piss off companies like Hasbro, and they're going to do what they've been doing so far. Anytime they don't make their money, they are going to victim blame, and we are going to be enemy number one. Collectors are going to be to blame, especially now that's come out that we are 25% of their toy profits yearly. They are going to blame the consumer and take it out on us in some way, shape, or form, whether it means putting out less or raising prices even more, or they're going to do something to make the hobby worse before eventually things start to balance back out in a couple years. And then I think you're right, we will eventually go back to how it was pre-pandemic, where there won't be enough for everybody, and it will be stressful, but not as stressful as it was during the pandemic. But I think it's going to be a while before we get to that point. And I think it's going to get real heavily reliant on online sales, where people are just going to pre-order and stop going brick and mortar at all because of that. So companies like Big Bad Toy Store are going to prosper during this time, at least to the extent that they'll get the sales that Target wouldn't, because people don't want to bother with it. Versus, also the fact that there'll be less people buying because of said actions. But let us know in the comments below. Do you think the collecting bubble is popped? Do you think we're full of shit? Do you think that things are still great and happy in the collecting world? And if you enjoyed this video and you're still sticking around, make sure to like and subscribe, because it helps us out, and it also gets you some toy-related content on your feed. We've got reviews on Mondays, Let's Pose on Tuesdays, we have our live streams on Wednesdays, and the weekly podcast that you're currently watching on Fridays, along with some other things we throw in here and there, like top 10 lists and such. We also have, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at Modern Toy Fair. Check us out on there. We do have a Twitch channel, which if for some reason you don't want to watch the live stream on here, you can go to twitch.tv/Modern Toy Fair and watch it on there. We will be simulcasting it, so that way we don't leave anyone behind who was kind enough to follow us there, while still coming over to YouTube, where we may get a bigger audience, because that's where our core audience is. You can check Jarmar out over on metal.tv/Jarmar Games. And Nate, what is it do you have for us this week?
Wait, this just in. I don't mean to steal your segment, Nate, but this is a very exclusive podcast that we're going to offer to our Patreon listeners. And we had a discussion before the show, and it came to my attention that you have not yet watched Cobra Kai. So what we're going to do, this is a complete joke because we're not going to do this for real, but this is really
No. Keep going.
You have to commit.
Because we might.
Okay. So what I have proposed here is we're going to do a rewatch of Cobra Kai, the entire 5 seasons. But the catch is, so Nate will enjoy it, he will have partaked in some of the Mary Janes. So it will be the podcast called Cobra High Podcast.
Oh, Jesus.
Sounds like a great idea.
That's a really good idea. It's a
Oh
really
my God.
It's a
we
really
do a
good idea.
rewatch series of all 5 seasons, because the show's amazing, and it's only going to be even more amazing knowing that it is amazing. So that was my joke at the beginning, that I was in tears because I couldn't.
Yeah, the one that you were laughing so hard at yourself for. Oh man. Well, that's gonna be it for this week.
I can't
Hopefully,
top that.
hopefully we see you next week. Same toy time, same Toy Fair channel. Thank you for watching.